are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, May 14th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about Jared Goff getting his new contract. So I'll get into the specifics of that Lions segment to start out the show. Then in the second part of the show, we will talk about the game that will start the NFL season, and that is going to be the game between... Well, it's going to be an AFC Championship game rematch. It's going to be between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'll get into that. Also, another game was announced for the Chiefs, who they'll be playing Week 2, and that'll be the Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll get into that as well. Then in the third part of the show, I'll talk about Tom Brady's first game that he will be broadcasting in the regular season, and it'll be between the Cleveland Browns and the Dallas Cowboys in Cleveland. So we'll get into that. Then... in the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about, well, I'm going to do my NFC West rankings. So that kind of got pushed, to the fourth segment because, of other stuff that's been going on. So we'll do that. I'll rank the teams in the NFC West post-NFL draft. And then in the final part of the show, I'm going to talk about Dre Greenlaw and some comments he made, how he's still, his thoughts on, the injury that he suffered in the Super Bowl. I wanted to talk about that because, it was a very freak injury that he had in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs where, he was running out onto the field and then he just fell to the ground and ended up suffering an Achilles injury. And I just want to talk about that, what he had to say, and, just give my overall thoughts there. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Jared Goff getting a contract extension. So I know I've done a couple of segments on that recently. I talked about what the general manager of the Lions had to say. Obviously, this offseason, the Lions have paid guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell. And it was really a matter of when, not if, for Jared Goff when it comes to him getting a new contract. And he ended up getting it. And it was a 4-year contract, $212 million, and this deal includes $170 million guaranteed and runs through 2027 with an option for 2028. Now, this makes him the second highest paid player in the league behind only Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. And Detroit's offseason spending on extensions now exceeds $110 million. And, the Lions... like I said before, they paid Amon-Ra St. Brown, they paid Penei Sewell, two key guys on the offense, one on the offensive line, and of course Amon-Ra St. Brown is their number one wide receiver, and now they pay their quarterback and give him $170 million guaranteed. And Jared Goff, coming off of a solid season last year, he ranks in the top 4 in passing yards last year and passing touchdowns. He had 4,500 yards passing and 30 touchdowns. And he was a part of the team that won a playoff game for the Lions for the first time in 30-plus years. And then they won another playoff game. And they got to an NFC Championship game. And he is going to be in it for the long haul. And I'm very happy for Jared Goff. And he deserves it. I mean, I don't know how many times I got to say it. We all know what happened a couple years ago with him being traded over to Detroit. The Rams, they gave up on him. They wanted Matthew Stafford. They did get a Super Bowl out of it. But, Jared Goff, what he's been able to do for this organization is unbelievable. And the Lions, they're going to be one of the best teams going into next year. And I think, for me, I still have them as the favorites to win the division. The division is going to be better. I've talked about this division a lot, the NFC North. And I've said how both North divisions are really good. I think the AFC North is the best division, but this division is good in its own right. For me, I still put the Lions ahead of everybody else. Now, it's again, the gap is small between them and the Packers, I would say. But I think the Lions, I still look at them as the favorites. But you got Jared Goff now for the long haul. And, I expect him to, go into next year, put up solid numbers. And we'll see what the Lions do. Are they going to be able to get past now the championship game? Because I did say that now there's going to be higher expectations for the Lions. Okay, last year you got to the NFC Championship game. Now can you go out and get to a Super Bowl? And I think they definitely can because they played well against the 49ers. They had a chance to knock them off and get to the Super Bowl, and we would have saw a rematch from Week 1 against the Chiefs when the Lions did beat the Chiefs. But unfortunately, things happened, and the Niners came back, and they ended up, moving on and playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But, yeah, expectations are going to be higher for the Lions. And are they going to be able to rise to the occasion? And we'll just have to wait and see. But for me, I look at them right now as, top 3 team in the NFC. I think for me, I rank them over the Packers. Listen, I like what the Eagles have done a lot, but I'm still going to rank the Lions ahead for the moment. And we'll see, whenever these teams match up. But, I have right now I got the 49ers and the Lions as the top 2 teams in the NFC at the moment. Now, we'll see what happens when games are played, but that's kind of my rankings at the moment. And we'll see how their schedule shapes out because we got the schedule release is official tomorrow. The full release, that'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And already the NFL is sprinkling out matchups, a couple of matchups with the Chiefs. I know I mentioned it before, but we'll talk about the game that Tom Brady will be broadcasting in Week 1. Also, there's another game that was announced as well Monday night, Week 1, so we'll get into that. I'll talk about that in the Brady segment. But yeah, it's it's an exciting time right now. We're gonna see. Listen, whenever the schedule comes out, that's again, it's Christmas in May for me. We'll find out what all the primetime matchups are. So that's tomorrow. So it's upon us, and we're gonna find out. We'll find out if Netflix actually will be doing NFL games in 2024 as well. So we'll keep an eye on it. I'm curious to see if they strike that deal, if they end up doing games. I wonder how what the broadcasting teams are gonna be like. That's one thing that I'm thinking about, but we'll find out. So, yeah, I can't wait for that. So, like I said, that's tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But yeah, back to the Lions. I this team is definitely going to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of the Packers and them, who's going to come out on top. Whether they're going to be a wild card team or are they going to be a division winner. Like I said, I think that they should be the favorites. I give them the slight edge, but we'll see. I mean, these teams split last year. Lions dominated in Lambeau, and the Packers dominated in Ford Field on Thanksgiving. So when they play each other, that'll be, it's not really going to be the rubber match because, it's a different season now. But, yeah, I mean, we'll see how they match up against each other this year. Because, the Packers, they got better. And you figure Jordan Love is going to be, even better. And he's going to carry over the momentum from last year and be more the Jordan Love towards the end of the year, not the one from the middle of the year. But we'll see. And Jordan Love is, another quarterback that's, looking to get paid. You still got him. You still got Dak Prescott that's looking for a new deal. I know Tua Tagovailoa. He could be getting a new deal from the Dolphins, which, are the Dolphins going to give him that or not? Again, I work with someone that's a Dolphins fan, and he's just, waiting for it. But he's not too thrilled about it. So, yeah, there's still some quarterbacks that have to get paid. But, yeah, I mean, Jared Goff is the second highest paid player behind Joe Burrow. So, yeah, I mean, again, I know you're going to have those groups of people that are going to say, how are these players making that much money? I mean, Jared Goff is, he's not, I think he's like outside the top 5. I'd put him in, he's definitely a top 10 quarterback. I don't know if he's not top 5. Probably just outside the top 5. But definitely top 10. Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback, in my opinion, when he's healthy. So, but yeah, I mean that's what the Lions had to do. They had to give him, big money for him to stay, and they got him signed, and they got 2 other key players signed. So, now the Lions are ready to roll, and they will definitely be a formidable team in 2024. But let me know what you guys think about Jared Goff's new deal. Again, I mean, a lot of guaranteed money in that contract. But, I mean, that's what you got to do. Quarterback is the most important position. And sometimes, yeah, you might have to overpay. But, if you believe that he's the guy, you're going to do everything you can to make sure that you keep him around. So, but congrats to Jared Goff on the new deal. And like I said, the Lions are ready to roll in 2024. So, we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Chiefs and the Ravens kicking off the 2024 NFL season. So, I'll get into that when we come back from our first break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about a couple of matchups for the Chiefs to open up the season. They are actually rematches of the past 2 AFC Championship games. So you have the Ravens, they'll be playing them to kick off the 2024 season. And then in week 2, it'll be the late afternoon game. It'll be the Chiefs against the Bengals. So kind of interesting how they loaded up the Ravens and the Bengals early in the season. Well, to start the season, really. I mean, usually you'd have one of these teams playing the Chiefs, later in the season. Well, the Bengals usually later in the season. The Ravens, I know there was one year they played them in week 2. But Yeah, so this is what we got to start the season. So the first two games of the NFL season, not the Chiefs, but the first two games of the NFL season, you got the Chiefs and the Ravens, and the following night you have the Packers and the Eagles. So it's going to be a fun weekend. But with this game, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of history between these two teams. We know that. A lot of history between these two quarterbacks. More specifically, these two teams, they just played each other in the AFC Championship game in Baltimore, and the Chiefs won that game 17-10, low-scoring game. Ravens had their opportunities to win, to get back in the game and possibly win it if they were able to get back into it, but costly mistakes, turnovers, not being able to generate a lot of offense in the game, only rushing the ball 6 times, right? So, the Ravens, they might have been the better overall team in that game, but, the Chiefs, they just know how to handle the playoffs. And they flipped that switch. And, the defense, you could look at that as kind of the strength of the team because the offense struggled throughout the year. But, Patrick Mahomes played really well in the playoffs. Travis Kelce played really well, too. And, they ultimately got back to the Super Bowl. And, listen, Patrick Mahomes owns Lamar Jackson. And you go back to that Week 2 matchup. Oh, yeah, there was another Week 2 matchup. That was back in 2021. The Ravens won that game. It was a very high-scoring game. But you know what? The Chiefs kind of gave away that game. And because, if you remember, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he fumbled. Ravens got the ball back. They went for it on 4th and 1 in their own territory, and Lamar Jackson picked up the first down. And they won that game by a point. I think it was, what was the score? 36-35. Final score was. It was an insane game. And the Chiefs gave that away because of turnovers. So if the Chiefs don't do that, Patrick Mahomes is undefeated against Lamar Jackson. But, that's just how it's been. And I think it definitely bothers Lamar Jackson to some extent. But he's never going to admit that. And you thought, hey, the Ravens finally beat the Chiefs. Lamar got over the hump. He had a double-digit comeback. Because that was another thing, too, is Lamar Jackson being down in games. People would talk about him and say he's not able to do that. He's not able to come back from big deficits. But he did that. But nothing really has changed. I mean, the Chiefs are winning Super Bowls. Lamar Jackson did win another MVP, but ended up losing to the Chiefs. And, despite being the number 1 seed. And, yeah, the Chiefs won another Super Bowl. Now they're going for a three-peat. But here's the thing with the Ravens and the Chiefs. So with the Ravens, they're coming in with Derrick Henry now. And that's something I'm really excited for going into this game. And just, the season in general. But into this game, you're going to have Derrick Henry, who has run the ball well against the Chiefs in the past. And, we get to see that right off the bat. That same backfield, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, we get to see how that plays out. And, last year Mark Andrews got hurt, so you're hoping, he comes into this game healthy. I'm looking forward to this. This is a good game to start with. And then on the Chiefs side, they kind of revamped the receiving core a little bit. Now, I know they might not have Rashee Rice, but they went out, they got Marquise Brown, they drafted Xavier Worthy, and you're hoping Travis Kelce comes in healthier than last year, but, we'll see. I mean, he's still good. Listen, I know people talked about him declining, but I think Travis Kelce's going to be fine. And he's going to know when he's done. So it might be after this contract. Maybe he gets another one. But he's nearing the end in his career. But we'll see. But yeah, I expect Kelce to be back to how he was, not the right. Well, more so we see the Travis Kelce from the playoffs, not the regular season. But we'll see. And then, of course, you have Isaiah Pacheco, who's been a great find for them. Has run the ball effectively for them the last couple of years. And, the Chiefs, I mean, they pretty much brought everybody back. I know they had to trade L'Jarius Sneed away, but I think, they'll find a replacement for him. They just couldn't afford to lose Chris Jones, and they were able to bring him back. So, and this game's in Arrowhead, of course. And I think the last time the Ravens played there was 2019, which was the Week 2 matchup I was referring to. Yeah, that was the last time they played in Arrowhead. Because then the next 3 matchups, because the COVID season they played in Baltimore, 2021 they played in Baltimore, and then last year, of course, in the championship game, they played in Baltimore as well. So, yeah, I mean, it should be fun. It's nice. Again, like I said, it's a nice way to start off the season. So looking forward to this matchup. And then you got the Chiefs playing against the Bengals. Another AFC Championship game rematch from a couple years ago. They did play each other last year, but Joe Burrow was not there. He was out with the wrist injury, so you had Jake Browning starting for the Bengals. And the Bengals had a 10-point lead in that game. But they couldn't hold on to it. The Chiefs came back, won it. And, yeah, but that was without Joe Burrow. But we're going to get Joe Burrow in this game. And it's always fun when these two teams play against each other. I mean, every game with Burrow and Mahomes playing the whole time. I mean, it's always it's always a 3-point game. And I expect that to be more of the same when we see these two teams match up in Week 2. Now, I'm curious as to why the NFL decided to put it in Week 2. I don't know if there was any specific reason, but I don't know. I did think to myself, well, there is reports coming out about Joe Burrow's wrist and the surgery that he had. I'll probably talk about this at some point. Maybe, over the next couple of shows, maybe I'll touch upon it. But yeah, there's some concerns with the wrist that he had surgery on, and maybe they're kind of afraid that Burrow might get hurt and not play in the game later in the season. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. So maybe they just want to, hey, it's Week 2. We'll just, load up here with the Chiefs playing the Ravens and the Bengals. I don't know. But that was one thing I thought of, was maybe they're just afraid that Burrow might be hurt later in the season. I don't know. With some of the reports that we're hearing about the wrist. But, again, that's just me saying that. Don't take my word for it. But I don't know. I don't know I really don't know any of the reasons why the NFL may put certain games where, really the whole schedule. I mean, how the opponents are figured out based off of where teams finish. But it's just, how do they decide what games should be played when? I mean, yeah, good teams are going to be playing on prime time. We know bad teams are not, except, on Thursday night and possibly Monday night. But, yeah, it's a whole process with the schedule. So, but I don't know. I just thought of Joe Burrow and him being hurt, that maybe, they don't want to have this matchup later in the season and you end up having Jake Browning against Patrick Mahomes again. Because Joe Burrow has dealt with injuries over the course of his career, not just last year. But, yeah, I mean, I think regardless, it's two true tests for the Chiefs to start the season. Two teams that are going to be trying to knock the Chiefs off. So, and the Bengals are the team that have been able to do it. Not, a couple years ago, but the year before that in Arrowhead. So, yeah, I mean, looking forward to those two matchups again. I mean, I know that Lamar Jackson hasn't had great success against Patrick Mahomes, but some of their games have been close. I mean, the AFC Championship game was close, and it could have been close. The Ravens had their chances, but they came up short. And then, of course, like I said before, the Bengals and the Chiefs. I mean, it's always a classic whenever they play each other, when it's Burrow versus Mahomes. So, but yeah, so that's how the season is going to start out. So let me know what you guys think about the Chiefs' first 2 games. Any early predictions you may have for them. We're going to see Derrick Henry and the Ravens right off the bat to start the year against the Chiefs, so it's going to be fun. And then you got the Bengals the following week with the healthy Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming in. So looking forward to that. So before we go to our next break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we're going to talk about another Week 1 matchup, and that is the Browns and the Cowboys. That will be Tom Brady's broadcasting debut. So we will get into that when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about another Week 1 matchup that was announced, and it will involve Tom Brady and his broadcasting debut, and that is the Cowboys and the Browns. So, yeah, Tom Brady will be debuting with Fox. He's going to be alongside Kevin Burkhardt for this game, replacing Greg Olsen. And, yeah, it's going to be between the Browns and the Cowboys. And Brady signed a 10-year, $375 million contract with Fox in May of 2022 before retiring from playing. And now he is going to be taking over for Greg Olsen, like I said. And this is going to be the game that he's going to be doing. And I know some people might have some complaints because it's like, well, of course it's the Cowboys because Fox, their A-team is always doing Cowboys games, which I don't disagree with because it seems like they do those games a lot. They were doing games when the Cowboys were playing against lesser opponents like the Patriots last year and the Panthers as well. Their A-team is always doing Fox games. Or their A-team is always doing Cowboy games. And, of course, Tom Brady is going to be doing a Dallas Cowboys game. Because, again, that's what they always have the A-team doing. Now, this game is going to be interesting because, I'll talk about the game first. Because, with the Cowboys and the Browns, two teams that made the playoffs last year, both were one and done. And they both have expectations going into 2024. With the Cowboys, quiet offseason other than the draft. Didn't really make a lot of moves that, move the needle. And we've talked about this many times before. And, for me, I still look at them as a good team. But they got some decisions that they're going to have to make. Not just for this year, but beyond this year. Because you got some of their star players, well, really all their star players, that are looking for new deals. And it doesn't seem like they're going to keep everybody. You got CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott might be on his way out after 2024. And when you hear some of the things that he said, that, he's open to go out and test free agency. But, then on the other hand, you got the Cowboys saying, well, we want Dak back. Dak's our guy. Basically talking like that. You don't really know what to believe. But it's possible that Dak Prescott could be on the move and go elsewhere. And I brought up the other day, I think, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday, that, so something that Marcus Spears brought up on ESPN that I thought was interesting is that, the Raiders maybe, they kind of, make an attempt to maybe lure Dak to Vegas because they need a quarterback. Because I don't look at Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell as the long-term answer. I mean, could they? I mean, I think Gardner Minshew, we know he's a backup. But Aiden O'Connell, this is his second year, so maybe he shows us something. But I don't think so. But either way, I don't want to get to talking about the Raiders. But, yeah, Dak Prescott could be going somewhere else. So this could be his last chance with the Cowboys. And like I said, had a quiet offseason. They signed a linebacker. They brought back Zeke. But, and then, of course, they had their draft. But when you have Jerry Jones saying we're all in, you're thinking, oh, man, the Cowboys are going to be really aggressive in free agency. At least some people thought that. I mean, I kind of thought that too. But that ended up not happening. And they're kind of the same. I feel like the Eagles got better than them. And that's your number one competition in the division. Because, the Commanders, they have a young quarterback in Jaden Daniels. They're still, ways away. And then you got the Giants, who don't have a quarterback at the moment. It's really between you and the Eagles. So, yeah, I expect them to be a good team, be a playoff team, but I don't expect them really to go that far if they get to the playoffs. And then for the Browns, with their quarterback situation, they have a quarterback signed, on a long-term deal, but he hasn't lived up to his contract. And they gave up a lot to get him. And you see what the team that's doing in Houston, which was Deshaun Watson's old team, and you see what they're doing and what they're building over there. I mean, they really benefited from that trade. It is a lopsided trade right now. And now that doesn't mean that the Browns aren't a good team, because I think they are. But I think ultimately what's going to hold them back is the quarterback position. Because I don't see Deshaun Watson playing like he did in Houston. I think those days are over. Now, does that mean that he's completely washed? No. I think you still see, they have seen flashes, but there's no consistency there. The turnovers were a problem before he got hurt. And the injuries are becoming a problem. Well, are a problem. Because the Browns, they had to go through, they had 5 different quarterbacks starting for them last year. Joe Flacco had to come off the couch to finish the season for him. And he was playing in the playoffs. We got to see January Joe at least one more time. So, the Browns don't want to have to deal with that again. Because they got a solid defense, and I think they got solid playmakers around Deshaun Watson. Actually, you got an Amari Cooper revenge game. You got, because the Cowboys, they traded him to the Browns. Amari Cooper's going to want to go out there and ball out against his former team. He's going to want to do that. And then they also got Jerry Jeudy. They signed him to an extension. They traded for Elijah Moore, too. David Njoku had a solid year. And then they're just waiting on Nick Chubb. They're hoping Nick Chubb can come back and stay healthy. There are some ifs with this team. I mean, the running back position, I mean, you kind of look at the quarterback position is way more important. And the Browns, I mean, Jerome Ford did a nice job for them running the football last year. So, I mean, the Browns, they'll figure it out with the running back situation if Chubb is not a full go. And they're going to want to ease Chubb back into it. But, yeah, the quarterback position is a big deal. And I actually did forget, but they also have Jameis Winston on the team, too. So if Watson, can't play, if Watson gets hurt again, you got Jameis Winston. Now, I'm not saying Jameis Winston is going to, lead this team to a Super Bowl, but I think as a backup quarterback, I think that's a solid backup to have. So at least you're not going to go through a carousel of, P.J. Walker and, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Joe Flacco, and then Jeff Driscoll start the last game of the season. But, you got Jameis who can still win games, I think. And I think he's in a good system in Cleveland. So, you got Jameis Winston behind Deshaun Watson. But the Browns are hoping that Deshaun Watson is playing the full season. And they came off of that signature win against the Ravens. They came back against them. Watson was a part of that. And then he got hurt. So, we'll see what happens. But, this is going to be an interesting game. These two teams, I think, will, of course, be in the mix for the postseason. I think the Cowboys' path is a little bit easier than the Browns is, because I think the Cowboys play in the easier conference. But also the Browns have a tough schedule. The AFC North, they have their strength of schedules. I mean, they got some tough schedules this year. So, but yeah, I kind of spent more time talking about the teams as opposed to Tom Brady. But with Brady and him doing this game and just being a broadcaster now, I have no doubts on Brady's knowledge of the game. I think really I think people are just going to have to warm up to him being a commentator. I mean, I think he'll do okay. Because he's an expert of the game. He's, I mean, he's an all-time greatest quarterback of all time in many people's eyes. And I think working alongside Kevin Burkhardt, who I think is a good broadcaster as well, I think he'll do fine. I don't expect him to be like Tony Romo and, predict everything that's going to happen. But I you know what? Brady knows a lot. And I think, he does a podcast as well. I think he'll be able to, I think he'll do all right. So, but we'll see. I'm curious to see how that all plays out. So, let me know what you guys think. Brady, how do you think he's going to do broadcasting? Also, with this matchup between the Browns and the Cowboys, what are your thoughts from this game? Also, I mean, you got two defensive studs for these two teams. You got Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett as well in this game. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good game to start out the season, America's Game of the Week. So, but let me know what you guys think about the game, about Tom Brady broadcasting. Let me know in the comments. So, when we come back from our third break of the show, we are going to do now the NFC West rankings. And I'll kind of talk about, the moves that were made for these teams and where I rank them. So that's what we will do when we come back from our third break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows. Available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to do, we are now going to rank the teams in the NFC West. So I'm going to continue my rankings of each division from after the NFL draft. So let's get into that. So I do have a graphic for this. So let me just pull that up as well, because I know I've been doing that lately when ranking the teams, just so you have the teams in front of you. So yeah, here's the NFC West. You got the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals. So let's get into the rankings now, shall we? So at number 4, I do have the Arizona Cardinals. And, last year they did surprise some people with some of their wins. I mean, earlier in the season they beat the Cowboys at home, which no one expected. But, they had Josh Dobbs starting. They traded him once Kyler Murray was on his way back. I know Clayton Tune started a game for them against the Browns, and they just couldn't generate any offense. But then Kyler Murray came back and, did play well. I thought he did okay. And the Cardinals are committed to him. And they went out and they got Marvin Harrison Jr., who was arguably the best receiver in the draft. They also went out, they actually did sign Zay Jones as well recently to add to that receiving core, because that receiving core was a little thin. So they did that. They also did draft a running back as well, because, James Conner's getting up there in age, so, that you want to have his heir once, they let him go, whenever that is. But, yeah, so, I mean, for me, I think the Cardinals, for them, I mean, the other teams I think are just better. Now, when you look at the Seahawks and their quarterback situation, I mean, I kind of like Kyler Murray over the quarterbacks that the Seahawks have, but the Seahawks to me are just a better overall team. So, but with the Cardinals, I mean, a player I really like from the Cardinals is Trey McBride, their tight end. He had a breakout season last year. They got a real weapon there at the tight end spot with him. And, yeah, now they got their number one guy with Marvin Harrison Jr. The Cardinals, a couple years ago, they made that trade to get DeAndre Hopkins to give Kyler Murray a number one weapon. Now he's no longer there. They went out and they got Marvin Harrison Jr., who was like I said, arguably the best receiver in the draft. So, they got him a weapon. And like I said, they added Zay Jones. So, the receiving core, like I said, before the draft, it was a little thin, and we knew that was a position they were probably going to address in the draft, and they went out and did that. And now let's see what they do now in year 2 with Jonathan Gannon as the head coach. And I think the Cardinals will win more games than they did in 2023. How many games did they win? Did they win they won 5, I believe, right? I might be wrong, but let me double check. They won 4 games. I think they can win more than 4 games. Now, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year, but I think they'll definitely win more than 4 games. If they got Kyler Murray healthy for the full season, I think they should win more than 4 games. But I still have them ranked last in the division. So then at 3, I got the Seahawks. And, this is a new era now. There's no more Pete Carroll. It's now Mike McDonald, who they got over from, who came over from the Ravens, defensive-minded guy. And I do like the Seahawks roster. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, you got a nice trio of wide receivers in DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Running the football, you got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So I like the offense for the Seahawks. And, they got a defensive-minded head coach, so you think the defense is going to, still be a solid unit. They did bring back Leonard Williams, the Seahawks, for the defensive line, so that was huge. I know Witherspoon, their corner, he was solid for them last year. I know he had that, what was it, like a 100-yard return or whatever it was off of Daniel Jones in Week 3 on that Monday night game when Daniel Jones got sacked 11 times. But, Yeah, the Seahawks, I like their roster. I just feel like the quarterback position is going to hold them back a little bit. But it's going to be an interesting competition because it's going to be a competition in my opinion. You got Geno Smith and Sam Howell. And I don't know, for me, maybe I just am a little too optimistic with Sam Howell, but I think Sam Howell, if he gets the starting job, I think he could be good for the Seahawks. I mean, he did get off to a good start with the Commanders last year, and then things just kind of fell apart, and he was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. But I feel like Sam Howell could really push Geno Smith for the starting job. And I feel like he might be the better option because we kind of know what Geno Smith is at this point. And I give Geno a lot of credit. You know, he got drafted by the Jets, and it didn't really pan out there, and kind of has been a backup this whole time. And then, 2022 comes around, Seahawks trade Russell Wilson. They get Drew Lock in that trade, but Geno Smith wins the starting job. And, they made the playoffs with Geno Smith. But last year kind of took a little bit of a step back, was hurt. And, well, now Drew Lock's not there. Now it's Sam Howell, like I just said. But, I think Geno, he's a backup. But he can start games and he can win them. And the Seahawks, that was a good situation to end up in. And I feel like whoever starts, the Seahawks are going to be a competitive team. Because I think with their roster, they should be able to compete. Now, I think the other two teams, the top two teams, the Rams and the 49ers, I think they're better. Because, you look at the quarterback positions and, the 49ers just have a loaded roster top to bottom. The Rams are trying to rebuild their defense now with Aaron Donald not being there anymore. So, I just like, that's why I'd probably rank them at 3. But I'm curious to see the quarterback battle between Sam Howell and Geno Smith. But at 2, I got the Rams. Last year we had some surprises. We had Puka Nacua, had a great season. Kyron Williams ran the ball effectively for them. Matthew Stafford had a solid year. For me, the Rams, I think, are the second best team in the division. You get a healthy Matthew Stafford and that offense. That offense is going to put up a lot of points. And I thought bringing back DeMarcus Robinson was a good move because he played well for them to be their number 3 wide receiver behind Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. So, and the Rams, they, drafted guys on the defensive side of the ball because, they lost Aaron Donald, and it's not going to be easy to replace. So, I think, because I think that was the issue last year, losing to the Lions, is the defense. I think if the defense was able to get more stops in that game, maybe it'd be a different game. And obviously the defense is not as loaded as it was when they won the Super Bowl. But, for me, with Sean McVay and Stafford being healthy, I think this team is the second best team in the division. And I expect them to be in the mix for one of those wild card spots. And then at number 1 is, of course, the 49ers. And, they're coming off of a tough loss in the Super Bowl. And we'll talk about them, the next segment when we talk about Dre Greenlaw. But, I expect the 49ers to be the best team in the NFC. They got pretty much everybody's coming back. I know Eric Armstead, I know they had to let him go. He's with Jacksonville now, but, you still got Bosa on the defensive line, and you got Fred Warner back there, one of the linebackers. And then, of course, on the offense, it's arguably the best offense in the NFL with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and, of course, Brock Purdy. So and Kyle Shanahan's one of the best coaches in the NFL. I know people have their criticisms when it comes to him because, he's come up short a lot of times in big games, but I think you still have to say he's one of the better coaches in the NFL. But I just still think the 49ers, they got the best roster here, and I expect them to be a very good team once again in 2024 and, being at least in the NFC Championship game. But yeah, so those are my rankings. So you got the Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams, and then the 49ers at 1. That's how I rank the division going into 2024. So, and that's actually the last NFC division that we'll do. We're going to move over to the AFC tomorrow. But let me know what you guys think. What would your rankings be? Let me know in the comments. So when we come back from our final break of the show, we will talk more about the 49ers. We'll get into talking about Dre Greenlaw and, some comments that he made, about the Super Bowl and getting hurt during the Super Bowl. So we'll get into all that when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about Dre Greenlaw and his comments that he made regarding his injury that he suffered in the Super Bowl. So if you remember, he suffered an Achilles injury. He was running onto the field when the 49ers were playing defense, and he ended up getting hurt, collapsed, and ended up tearing his Achilles, it was horrible to see. I mean, even when you listen to the mic'd up, when you listen to Fred Warner being mic'd up, and him putting his hands on his head, it was rough to see that, and especially because Dre Greenlaw is a solid player, and especially in the Super Bowl, you don't want to see anybody getting hurt in general, but you don't want to see anybody getting hurt in the Super Bowl like that, and he's one of their best players on defense, and just to see that happening, that was just horrible to see. But yeah, so it, like I said, occurred in the Super Bowl. I wanted to touch upon what exactly he had to say regarding the injury. So he said, sometimes you get a little flashback and shed a couple tears thinking about it. And these are actually his first public comments since the Super Bowl, which I didn't know. It's definitely an emotional thing because you know how hard you worked for that moment, how hard your team worked to get in that moment. You're that close to it, and you can't go out there and compete, so it just kind of feels like you left everybody hanging. So it's one of those things. It's one of the things that you just kind of think about, and you just try not to cry. My right Achilles was already in pain that whole month, so I wouldn't say necessarily that. I did not know that. So I wouldn't say necessarily that was the cause of it. Oh, because they asked about the conditions, because they were practicing on that in the it says here in the article that I have, the UNLV facilities, and I know there were some complaints about the conditions, but he said that's not the reason for that. Probably, but he did say it probably didn't help. The grass was pretty soft for me. I don't really pay attention to the field other than if it has holes in it or if I'm slipping. If it's not one of those two, I feel like I can battle any field. So that's his thoughts on it. And then he also said, when I feel like I can go out there and I really contribute and bring everything I got, I'm just going to do that every game. I don't know if it's going to be 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, or 10 games, but when I do get the opportunity, I'm going to go play like it's a Super Bowl every game. And right now, it seems like he's going to start the season on the PUP list, so that'll keep him out for at least the first 4 games of the year. But yeah, I mean, a lot to say there, and it's hard, especially like you get hurt in a game like that. I mean, that's what every player dreams of, is playing in the Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl, and yeah, I mean, that was tough to see. And now I don't think that his injury was the reason that the 49ers lost. I mean, I think, yeah, that hurt the defense, but the 49ers, they had a chance to win that game. And I've said it many times as to why I thought the 49ers lost. It's because of that, muff punt. The defense was playing well even when Dre Greenlaw got hurt. So I think if Ray McCloud doesn't fumble the ball there, the door does not open for the Chiefs to score a touchdown immediately after that. So I don't think Dre Greenlaw's injury, I mean, it had some impact on the game, but I don't think that was the reason why the 49ers lost. But yeah, I mean, it's, you feel for the guy, and he said, like, it's hard not to cry. I mean, yeah, and he said, like, he felt like he left everybody hanging. I mean, I don't think he should feel that. He shouldn't blame himself for getting hurt, because injuries happen. It's a part of the game. And it was just a freak injury. And I don't think his teammates definitely aren't going to blame him. The 49ers had a chance to win that game. But they came up short. And, and this is, it's an injury that's, going to leak into now the beginning of 2024, which I think the 49ers, they could feel his absence in the beginning of the season. But, it's, again, another Achilles injury with a, star player. You want to make sure that he's 100%. You don't want to rush him back either. Well, I mean, if he's on the PUP list, he's going to definitely miss the first 4 games. But even after that, I mean, you could see maybe a late season return for him, because it's not like it was Aaron Rodgers' injury or Kirk Cousins' injury where it happened during the regular season. Aaron Rodgers' injury happened the first game of the year. Dre Greenlaw's injury happened the last game of the year. So, yeah, that's going to leak into 2024. But, yeah, I mean, it's tough. And, for the 49ers, like I said, I look at them as still the best team in the NFC. But, yeah, it's gonna be tough to get back there. It's very tough. And now they're a team that, other than 2020, when they dealt with a ton of injuries, they made it to the NFC Championship game. And they've made it to 2 Super Bowls. Now, they've lost to the Chiefs twice, but they go far. They are always making deep playoff runs. And we'll see if they're able to do that again this year. I think, like, for me, I still look at, like I said, I still look at them as the best team in the NFC. I expect them to be in a championship game. But, yeah, it's going to be tough because teams are going to be better. So, but the thing I forgot to mention, I was going to bring up another game in the Tom Brady, Browns, Cowboys Week 1 game. But the 49ers, they will be opening up the first Monday night game of the year, Week 1. The 49ers will be playing against the New York Jets on Monday night. That will be the first game. And, Dre Greenlaw, it doesn't seem like he's going to be playing in that game. But I just wanted to talk about that game quickly before we wrap up here. So you're going to have Aaron Rodgers playing against the 49ers defensive line on Monday Night Football. And last year, of course, the Jets played on Monday night, Week 1, and Rodgers got hurt. Now, for me, as a Rodgers fan, definitely nervous going into this game because you got arguably the best defensive line in football, coming after Rodgers after he had a significant injury. But you know what? Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, the last time Rodgers did play the 49ers in the regular season, not the postseason, the regular season, it was that epic Sunday night game where the Packers were winning the whole time, and then Rodgers hit Devontae Adams a couple times, and they got into field goal. Well, it was like a 57-yarder. But yeah, they got into field goal range. Mason Crosby hit the game-winning field goal, and the Packers won that game. That was the last time Rodgers played the 49ers in the regular season. Now, in the postseason, they lost 13-10 in that snow game. And, that was Rodgers' last game last playoff game as a Packer. So, I mean, listen, that's an exciting matchup to look forward to. It's just, if you're a Jet fan, if you're an Aaron Rodgers fan, you're a little nervous because, again, is that what you want to see the Jets opening up? How you want to see the Jets opening up against the 49ers and on Monday night? Especially with what happened last year on Monday night for the Jets, but that's just me. So that's what will be the first Monday night game of the year. That'll be 49ers Jets. So, I mean, I'm just hoping Rodgers doesn't get hurt. And I know my friends who are Jet fans are already talking about that. Like, what if he gets hurt again? And it's like, why are we putting that out into the universe? Why are we doing that? Please don't. But, yeah, I just wanted to touch upon that with the last couple of minutes here. But, yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Like I said, we got some new faces, of course. Got a hockey podcast now, soccer, golf, hoops and heels, women's sports. And, of course, you got all the other shows as well. A couple of sports podcasts, baseball, basketball. We cover it all. We cover it all, and it's great to see how this network is really starting to grow here. So, and then, of course, you got myself. But, yeah, just like I say, give the other shows some love as well. But yeah, that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.